know he was so insistent about my going home to get rest.
Well, he was right. You know, you've hardly left that place since Margo was admitted. You probably haven't eaten anything either.
Happened to sound just like Draper, you know, except you forgot one thing. Now you're supposed to say how selfish I am, that even though I may not be hungry or tired, the baby needs her rest and her food. Wish he'd take his own advice.
Yeah, it's Mrs. Kavanaugh again. Did Dr. Kavanaugh pick up these messages yet? Thank you.
You know, I'm worried about him, Nicole. He's trying so hard to be the big, brave, supportive husband type.
Well, he doesn't have to try, surely.
No, but he's upset. He's got to be as upset as I am, if not more so. He is the one who found Margo.
He's probably feeling a little bit guilty.
Guilty about what?
Nothing. Nothing. Listen, I was just thinking he might feel a little bit guilty because he found her in her condition when he went over there to yell at her.
God, that's another thing. I wish that weren't true. And I wish he hadn't made it so obvious to the police that he was angry at Margo.
April, I know what's going through your mind. Now, just don't think about it. Well, you told me that Margo had regained consciousness. Well, when she's herself, she'll tell us what happened, and she must know who struck her, and she'll know that it wasn't Draper.
I've got to tell you something, Nicole. I went to the hospital this morning, first thing after Dr. Corwin. Dr. Corwin called and told me that Margo was regaining consciousness. I was hoping she could talk to me. She could say something to me.
Well, did she?
Yes, she did. Listen, don't say anything. I'll explain the whole thing to you later. Oh, hello, Logan.
Stand up, company. Come on. Thank you.
Well, do you have any theories?
Theories? I have a confession to make. Brilliant attorney though I am, and there are those who have used the word dazzling. I'm not much of a detective. I leave that to the police. People like Deborah and Steve Guthrie.
Oh, are they assigned to the case?
So far, Steve's going to be off it for a while, though. He's got an extradition case he has to handle. He'll be out of town.
It's too bad. We can use all the friends we can get. At least they don't jump to conclusions.
Nobody's going to jump to any conclusions. I can promise you that. Remember, no matter what the police turn up, I'm the one who has to ask for an indictment.
Then you do know what I'm afraid of.
Yes, I do, and I wish you wouldn't worry about it, because nobody is going to convince me that Draper would pick up a fire iron and slug somebody with it. Obviously, somebody was there before him.
Who?
That I don't know. I wouldn't rule out the burglar theory, though, even if the police have.
You know something about this investigation, then?
Well, only that nothing of value was missing from the apartment, but I don't think that's all that significant.
Must have really been somebody who hated Margo.
Or someone who wanted something from her that she wouldn't give.
Such as what?
I feel rotten even suggesting this. I didn't say anything to the police merely because I knew it would sound as though I were trying to accuse someone.
Well, April, you're among friends. Tell us.
Come on.
Just last week, Margo told me that Elliot had asked her for a divorce, begged her for a divorce, and she absolutely flatly refused.
Why would she do that? She threw him out.
Because of the reason he wanted the divorce that she couldn't accept, which was that he wanted to marry Nola Madison.
Are you sure about that?
I'm positive. He was livid. He must have called the studio a dozen times looking for Margo.
It's true. He called a lot, and Margo always refused to talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it sounds like this divorce was very important to him.
He was desperate about it, Logan. I know that for a fact.
Well, did the police know about this?
Well, I didn't say anything to them.
Well, maybe I should. You mind if I use your phone?
Be my guest. Better you than me.
Okey-doke.
Listen, I better start checking on dinner. You will stay, won't you?
Oh, sure. That sounds great.
Good.
There's nothing going to help you with that dinner. What is all this you were going to tell me about Margo in the hospital?
I asked Margo if Draper was innocent, and she said no. She couldn't have heard me. I'm sure she didn't hear me. She couldn't really have been conscious, but the fact is I wasn't alone. Dr. Corwin, the doctor who's taking care of her, was there, and he heard her.
Listen, Deborah, the reason I called, I'm over here at April's. She just told me that Elliot Dorn was furious with Margo. Seems like she wouldn't give him a divorce. which meant that he couldn't marry his current friend, who was no one other than, get this, Nola Patterson.
So he did have a motive.
Looks like it. I thought this might prove useful to you.
Yes, it certainly does, Logan. I thank you very much. All right. Margo refused to give Elliot a divorce, which means he did have something against her.
Wait a minute. I have nothing against your theory, but do you mind telling me how in the world he could have done it?
Well, why don't we just think about that later and go talk to him right now? Hmm?
We can also talk to Nola.
Yeah, maybe this would be a good time to talk to her about Martha Corey.
One thing for sure, Margo. You certainly knocked all the anger out of me. I never realized what a weak emotion anger was until I saw you lying there on the floor. I could feel it just flowing right out of me. All I could think about was getting help for you. Can you hear me, Margo? April says you can. She said that there's still part of your brain that's awake. That you can listen to me. If you can. There's something I want you to know, Margo, about how I feel, about how I felt. I was angry. Didn't I have a right to be? I mean, what you did was ugly. Forcing Henson to reject me for that job. Yeah, I know. You were desperate to keep April here in Monticello. You would have done anything. But why blackmail? But the funny thing is, Henson wouldn't have had to have given into it. His wife knew anything you could have told her. She was a nice lady. A lot tougher, a lot stronger than you gave her credit for. He loved his wife, Margo. I know he fooled around. I'm not going to judge him for that. Maybe it was just his way of trying to stay young. But he did love her, Margo. He loved her enough to tell her the truth. He wanted to clear his conscience. You really missed a tirade. I'm telling you, if you could have heard the things that I was going to say, your ears would have blistered. I wanted to tell you that you were never going to see April again, not in my house. That you were never welcome there. And then I wanted to tell you you were never going to see my child. But I know. When I got up there and I saw you, I would have realized that you are April's mother. And she does love you. I probably wouldn't have said half the things I was thinking. But right then, Margo, I mean, right at that moment, I wanted to do anything at all that would hurt you. I just wanted to hurt you. I forgot all about it, though, when I saw you lying there. What happened? I came into the apartment. The terrace doors were open. I thought for sure that whoever did this to you was still there. I checked the balcony. I checked the entire apartment. No one was there. I didn't see a sign of anyone. There's got to be an explanation. I was waiting for you in the car. I saw you go in. I saw you get into the elevator, Margo. Nobody got into that elevator before I did. There you were, lying on the floor and no one was around. It just doesn't make any sense, Mark. God, you can imagine what people are saying. Oh, a man, an angry man, goes up to see his mother-in-law with murder in his eyes. Anyway, I just want you to know it doesn't matter anymore, Margo. I mean, the anger, the job in New York. probably wasn't right for me. I know I would have missed Monticello. I would have missed my friends here. I would have missed my family. I like my life here. I like working with Mike. I've lived in big cities all my life, Margo. And now I find it impossible, but I love the suburbs. I love my house there. I love everything. I like the people I see, people I meet, the things I do. I know that if I'd given myself half a chance, Margo, I would have liked you too. God, Margo, please don't die. Please don't die.
Mr. Dorn?
Yes.
I'm Dr. Corwin. I've been taking care of your wife.
Yes, of course.
The night nurse told me that you were here. Are you going in to see her?
Well, her son-in-law is there with her right now, and frankly, I don't like to see my wife in that condition.
Excuse me.
But I have no idea when Elliot will be back. I believe he went to the hospital to see how his wife is doing.
Yes, I'm sure he's quite broken up about what happened to her.
Of course he is, and so am I. I think it was dreadful of that young man, Scott. Well, never mind. Look, if you want to speak to Elliot, I'll ask him to call you.
Well, we'd also like to talk to you, Mrs. Madison.
About what? Surely not about Margo. I didn't know the woman, you realize. I only met her once or twice.
No, we'd like to talk to you about a different woman. Somebody you've probably met a lot of times.
What in the world are you talking about?
I'm talking about Mrs. Martha Corey.
Well, so you've been talking to that poor sick man, Dr. Kavanaugh, haven't you? I knew it. He couldn't possibly keep his delusion to himself. I thought that when I came to his office only a week or so ago. Look, if you are friends of his, I certainly hope you're seeing that he's getting professional help.
Are you implying that Dr. Kavanaugh has something wrong with him?
My dear, I'll leave that to the experts. But from what Elliot has told me about him, it seems it runs in the family. His mother was insane. Did you know that?
Mrs. Madison, Dr. Kavanaugh's statement isn't the only reason we know the truth. Now, you know you've been making up as an old lady, Martha Corey, and that you moved right next door to Deborah.
You sound as unstable as he, Mr. Guthrie. Don't tell me it's infectious.
You know, I don't know how you could have fooled me for so long. I guess that's just a credit to your acting ability.
It's a credit to that madman's persuasiveness.
Mrs. Madison, we saw the movie.
What?
We saw Mansion of the Damned. Now, Dr. Kavanaugh isn't the only person outside of the movie company who knows what Hester Atherton looks like.
Oh, you're lying. You couldn't possibly have seen the movie. I haven't seen it myself.
Owen showed us the movie the other day, Mrs. Madison. We only got to be able to see one scene, but fortunately that was enough.
Enough for us to realize how you could adapt the makeup to create Martha Corey.
And Martha Corey, that was another clever invention of yours, since Martha Corey happened to be the first woman who was hanged as a witch in Salem.
You're both out of your minds. You'll never prove such a ridiculous story.
Well, don't worry, we're not trying to arrest you.
And is that what you thought when you saw me outside Deborah's apartment building?
I didn't see you. It's a lie.
Of course you did. Monday night. It was about 10 minutes to 8. Now, I remember the time because it's the same time Elliot's wife was assaulted.
I'm telling you that it's not true. Why would I do such a thing?
Mrs. Madison, you were on the corner buying fruit or something. Now, you gave that up when you saw me. I guess you were anxious to get away. What do you think I was going to do? Tear your wig and your makeup off? Mrs. Madison, please tell us the truth. Sooner or later, we're going to find it out.
Oh, very well. It is true.
Well,
it was all a joke, Deborah. For heaven's sake, don't you realize that? It was all a simple little practical joke. What a shame you have no sense of humor.
Oh, you're right. There's certain things that I don't have any sense of humor about.
I just thought it would be a delicious game. Once the movie was finished, I missed playing a part. And I thought, well, what fun it would be to play the part of darling Deborah's neighbor. And wasn't I a very good neighbor, Deborah? Didn't I take marvelous care of you?
Well, we have company.
You've missed all the fun, Elliot. We've just been having a delightful conversation.
Well, you haven't missed it all. We have a few questions we'd like to ask you, Elliot.
Really? You mean like official type questions?
If you don't mind.
I've already told Deborah my movements the night Margo was attacked.
Those questions were not official, Elliot.
And there's one question I'm sure Deborah didn't ask you, and that was about your relationship with your wife.
Isn't it obvious? Margo and I are separated.
Elliot, isn't it true that you asked Margo for something more permanent than a separation?
It isn't the husband's call to demand a divorce, if that's what you mean. It's not considered gallant.
Just the same, didn't you go see Margo and ask her her intentions?
Look, I really don't see what this has to do with
We
it.
have information that you requested a divorce.
Oh, now, wait a moment. I thought Mrs. Dorn is in a coma of some sort.
Please, Mrs. Madison, I'd like a straight answer from Elliot.
Well, I didn't have to request a divorce since Margo obviously wanted the separation as much as I did. The marriage was over. What need was there to continue a legal state that had no value to either one of us?
Yes, but divorce does have some value to you, doesn't it? Since you were planning to remarry.
We had discussed it, but that was all.
Elliot, could you tell us again exactly what you were doing the night your wife was assaulted?
Oh, for heaven's sake, the man's already told you. Well, go ahead, Elliot. Tell them again if they insist.
I told you I was at a movie, and that's where I was. At the Riverside Theater, although I can't recall the name of the feature.
It was a space spectacular, Elliot. I looked it up.
I understand you slept through it. Now, isn't that a little difficult with all the noise?
You said you went to a bar afterwards, the nearest bar. Could you please try to describe it for me?
It was a bar. They all look much the same, don't they?
Elliot, you must remember something about the place.
Well, I don't. Damn it! I mean, this is being ridiculous and pointless. The minute you're looking for a criminal, you come to me. Why don't you go and see that ingrate of a son-in-law of hers? I practically heard him confess to it at the hospital. If you want a criminal, go and see Draper Scott.
I don't care if there are 10,000 fingerprints. I want that whole damn place dusted, not just the vicinity of the crime. Oh, Henry, please do what I ask. You're still outrank you, remember? Come in.
Derek,
Hi, Nicole.
I feel really foolish about keeping this appointment, but I was in the neighborhood and I thought I'd stop in and tell you in person that our plans for the program have changed.
I'm not surprised.
Movers and Shakers is Margo's baby, and the only reason I'm doing it is that she wanted me to. But under the circumstances, with Margo in the hospital, I thought it'd be best to just shelve it.
It's all right. I understand perfectly. To tell you the truth, I'm a little relieved. I wasn't quite sure how I was going to hold up to your tough line of questioning.
I'm not so tough.
No, you're not. I guess right now you must be worried out of your mind.
Margo isn't just my boss, she's my friend.
And I know what a good friend you are to April.
She's like my sister.
And Draper.
Derek, what's going to happen?
From the point of view of the police department?
I realize if you were just to look at the facts of this case on face value, you might...
Nicole, the worst thing a person can do is to simply not recognize the obvious.
Yes, but this is one case where the answer may not be that obvious. You don't agree with that, do you?
No, I'm afraid I don't. I don't believe in phantoms, trapdoors, or human flies. I believe what my eyes, my ears, and my senses tell me. I believe in concrete facts and logical conclusions.
You think Draper did this?
I haven't put this into effect yet, but it's a warrant for Draper's arrest. Now, the only crime I've outlined here is assault. Let's just hope it doesn't become anything worse.
Doctor! Doctor!